Alright, now hear me, and hear me deep. There comes a moment in life, quiet, aching, sacred, when a soul cries out in confusion. Why did the narcissist show up in my world? Not once, not softly, but like a thunder that won't quit echoing through the bones. Why now? Why me? Why this soul disguised in beauty but built on deception? Let's settle something real quick. Heaven didn't write that entrance. God doesn't traffic in trickery. That wasn't fate, that wasn't destiny, and that sure wasn't grace. That was your open wound meeting a predator's perfect timing. That was hope brushing shoulders with harm. You see, the narcissist didn't stumble into your life like a breeze through an open window. Oh no. That was a mission. Slow, quiet motion study. Every step they took. Measured every word. Scripted. Every compliment. Watched. They waited. Not with kindness in their heart, but with conquest in their eyes. They saw your spirit limping. Saw your heart still bleeding from battles past. You might have been smiling in the mirror but trembling inside. You might have posted joy but were privately holding yourself together with prayer and invisible tape. And that is when the narcissist came knocking. But listen to me, being vulnerable ain't weakness. Yearning for connection isn't foolish. Craving love after a storm doesn't make you naive. It makes you human. The danger is, when a soul's starving for peace, even poison wrapped in a pretty bow can look like heaven's answer. That's the moment the narcissist walks in. Not as destruction, but as a false resurrection. They don't heal, they hypnotize. Don't confuse the two. They mirrored your light, not to reflect it, but to dim it. They echoed your dreams, not to build them, but to bait you. And I know why it felt real. Because they whispered what your wounds were already screaming for. You heard their lies through the ears of your need, and it sounded like truth, but it wasn't. It was theater, not love, not grace, not purpose. Just strategy. And here's what I want burned deep into your soul. It wasn't your fault. You didn't fail. You were just too honest to recognize someone playing pretend. There ain't a class in school that teaches you to spot a charming destroyer. No sign on their forehead saying run. You learned in the fire. And my God, you survived it. The narcissist loves the cycle: flatter, confuse, disappear, return, accuse, distract, repeat. Not a love story, a soul trap. A merry go round from hell. But then something starts to shift. The fog lifts, the spell breaks. You open your eyes and realize you've been playing a game you never agreed to. And baby, when you finally see the board, you stop being a pawn and become the player. That moment, when your spirit rises up, when your inner voice screams, no more. That's when the narcissist panics. Because you've seen through them. Because you finally call gaslighting by its name. Because you no longer beg to be believed. And let me tell you, your clarity terrifies them. Your truth, it cracks their mask. Your presence, it scorches their illusion. They always do. Let them. That's not abandonment. That's your rescue in disguise. So if you've been wondering, what did this happen to me? Maybe flip the question. What did I need to awaken in me? Because now, you've seen the devil in disguise, and you didn't bow, you rose. Now you walk not with wounds, but with wisdom. Not just fire in your soul, but light in your eyes. You're no longer a target, you're the testimony. And baby, that's where the real power lives. That's where you live now. Now let's clear the air right from the start. Straight, no sugarcoating. God didn't hand you over to the narcissist like a lamb to the slaughter. That wasn't divine mischief. That wasn't a heavenly prank. Our Creator doesn't toss souls into destruction for entertainment. No, friend. That presence in your life, that storm in human form, came not because heaven willed it, but because something deep in you was wide open. Something sacred. Something searching. Maybe it was love you longed for. Maybe it was a place to belong. Maybe you were aching for the kind of warmth you never really had. You were reaching, stretching your spirit towards something good, something real. And just when your arms were open, just when your guard was down, the narcissist walked in, with charm on their lips and destruction folded neatly behind their smile. You see, the narcissist didn't come with the same heart you carry. No, you brought openness. They brought calculation. You showed up for love. They showed up for leverage. You came to build. They came to devour. To drain. You to wear your light like a costume until it no longer served their image, and then cast it aside for the next shiny thing that passed by. You've got to understand this: intentions matter more than appearance. And what the narcissist wanted, it wasn't love, it was control. Their game. Different faces, same poison. Whether it's a lover, a friend, or someone with your last name. It's all manipulation dressed in whatever outfit will get through the door. But it gets heavy when that narcissist shares your blood. What do you do when the enemy isn't out there, but seated at your childhood table? What do you do when the hand that rocked your cradle also clipped your wings? Some of you came into the world through the front door of a battlefield. You didn't choose it, you were born into it. A house full of shame instead of shelter. A parent who bruised your spirit with words they called love. Listen to me, and listen hard. Just because someone shares your DNA doesn't mean they've earned a front row seat to your soul. Family isn't biology, it's behavior. It's how they treat you when you're down. How they speak your name when you're not in the room. And if someone, anyone, brings only bitterness to your life, you have every right to rise from that table and walk away. Because some families carry the spirit of Cain. Jealousy in a smile, betrayal with a kiss. They won't cheer you on. They'll compete with your every breath. And if you're not careful, you'll spend a lifetime trying to earn love from those who are allergic to truth. But here's what changes everything: awareness. You start watching, not just what they say, but what they do when you challenge the lie. When you speak truth and they twitch. When the mask slips and you finally see the eyes behind the grin. Anyone can play nice when they want something. But true character, that shows up in the storm. And after it all, after the heartbreak, the confusion, the shattered illusion, there's a strange, holy gift. I know it doesn't feel like one at first, but once the dust settles, and the narcissist is nothing but a speck in your rearview mirror, something sacred starts to rise in you. You realize you've changed, not just stronger in that pretty quote kind of way. I mean deeper, like forged iron, like fire-tested faith. You start to trust your gut again. You begin to remember your voice. Because let me be real with you. Narcissists train you to doubt yourself. They gaslight until your intuition feels like paranoia. They twist until, maybe I'm crazy, becomes your daily prayer. But through the breaking comes the truth. I used to wonder if I was too emotional, too much, too sensitive. Turns out, I was just surrounded by people who couldn't handle truth spoken through a heart that refused to harden. And one day, I saw it for what it was. Through quiet study, through desperate prayer, through the kind of honesty that leaves no corner dark, I named the beast. And in naming it, I broke its grip. Here's what I need you to hold close: the narcissist didn't break you. They revealed what needed healing. And in that sacred exposure, you were handed your invitation to rise. You were never too much, you were never the cause. You were never the problem. You simply gave your light to someone who only knew how to live in shadows. How do you know when a spirit isn't for you? It can't handle truth. You speak truth, you shine light, they scatter, they accuse, they deflect, they vanish. Good. That's not loss. That's the chains falling off. Because what you needed, friend, wasn't their presence. What you needed was already there. You needed you, your voice, your worth, your knowing, your strength. And now you've found it. And once you've found it, there is no turning back. Let me break it down. Real plain, real raw. The signs were there. You know they were. Not buried, not hidden. Just painted over with charm and coated in charisma. But when you don't know what danger looks like wearing perfume and promises, you don't run. No, you open the door. You offer it coffee. You pull out a chair and call it fate. See, most people aren't blind. They're hopeful. Hopeful to the point of heartbreak. They see the red flags, a flapping like fire in the wind, but wrap themselves in grace and good intentions. Maybe it's just stress. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe love is supposed to hurt a little. Let me tell you, love doesn't lie. But the narcissist does. Over and over. And not by accident. Not because they're flawed, but because they're calculated. This isn't someone stumbling through their own wounds trying to heal. This is someone mapping yours and using them as entry points. You weren't dealing with someone broken. You were dealing with someone dangerous, a counterfeit soul in designer empathy, a taker, dressed like a healer, a performance, not a person. And if I were sitting across from someone I love, someone looking for real, lasting, God-breathed connection, I'd lean in and say this: don't get caught up in the charm. Watch the fruit. Watch how they treat the ones they don't need. Watch what happens when they don't get their way. Anyone can play nice in the spotlight, but character, real character, shows up backstage. Don't fall for the words, watch the walk, look for patterns. Not apologies, not potential, patterns. You know what I've seen destroy more souls than sin? False hope. You people thinking they can be the one to heal what someone else refuses to even admit is broken. They see the addiction, the rage, the manipulation, and think, if I just love them hard enough. But no, you're not the cure for someone else's curse. You weren't born to be their lesson plan. Because here's the truth that'll sting before it saves: a narcissist doesn't change. Not because they can't, but because they won't. They don't believe they need to. The world is full of fresh supply. Another heart to leech, another spirit to charm, another soul to siphon. And in a world aching for connection, the supply is endless. So they don't run out of victims. They just rotate them. That's why you have to shift. You've got to stop drifting through life giving backstage passes to people who never deserved a seat in your balcony. You've got to ask the tough questions. Move slow. Trust patterns, not promises. Because wisdom doesn't arrive wrapped in a ribbon. It's delivered through pain. Real discernment. That's born in the ashes of what almost destroyed you. You get wise when the burn leaves a scar. You get sharp when the lies cut deep. And when your discernment sharpens, the narcissist starts to tremble. They can't handle someone who's no longer applauding the act. They vanish. Not because they've changed, but because you did. They ghost. They smear. They rage. They run. Let them. They're not afraid of being abandoned. They're terrified of being exposed. And that strength in you, the one rising now, it didn't come from comfort. It was carved from loneliness, betrayal, and gaslighting that almost convinced you to hate yourself. You were blamed for chaos you didn't cause. Labeled dramatic for feeling what was real. Told you were too much, too loud, too emotional. But the only thing you were too much of. Too awake for their illusion. And now, you know the game. And now, the narcissist can't touch you. Because when you truly see the fake, the real becomes sacred. When you finally love yourself enough to say no, that's the end of their access. You've come too far to hand your heart to frauds. You've been rebuilt in silence, in prayer, in fire. You're not who you were when they met you. You're wiser now. You walk taller, you speak slower, you see clearer. And let me say this with everything in me, like God didn't send the narcissist into your life, but God is using every scar they left as stone for your foundation. You thought you were falling apart, but you were being built. You thought it was a breakdown, but it was your breakthrough. So forgive yourself. Forgive the version of you that believed the lie, stayed too long, wanted to see the good. That version was brave. That version was soft. That version tried. But now, that chapter's closed. The mask has fallen. The fog is lifted. And ahead of you is a life written in truth. A future shaped by discernment. A strength that doesn't apologize. You live, and, my friend, you rise. Not in spite of the storm, but because you walked through it. And that is your victory.